right? It's going to be a series of events held periodically where we'll have a selected delivery team present on some aspect of what we do at EduSpots. And for today, you'll be hearing from Adam Nabila, Getrude Akunlibe, and myself touch on aspect of what we do at EduSpots. Please pardon me for the background noise. It's raining over here, and then my lights are out. Right, so by way of giving an overview of how the session is going to go, we first have introductions of the delivery team, of course, and Gertrude will share with us a story. Adam will also present on how the sport functions. I'll talk about our volunteer community and our core volunteer program. Right. Before I move on to introducing these amazing personalities, I want you to imagine a world where communities unite to create the change they desire, right? A world where members of a community are given the ability or the power to effect their own change. I am Father Abdurrahman, Programs Manager at EduSpots, and I joined EduSpots in 2021 when I was posted in Sakasaka as a teacher. When I got to Sakasaka, EduSpots had already established its presence, and I fell in love with its community-led model of creating change. Fast forward, I joined one of EduSpots' leadership development programs, which we'll be talking about in a bit. And then ultimately, or eventually, I landed myself a managerial role in the organization. To my extreme left is Adam Nabila. Adam, can you please come up and share with us your amazing personality? All right, Gertrude, can you please come up and introduce your wonderful self?
Hello, everyone. Thank you, Pat. So my name is Getrude Akunlibe. I am the EcoSTEM Program Coordinator, and I'm also the founder of the Dulugu. I'm excited to be sharing my story.
All right, thanks for sharing, Gertrude. Moving on, it is widely known that stories are one powerful way of communicating, right? And at this point, I would want to call on Gertrude to share with us her amazing story joining EduSpots. Gertrude, over to you.
All right, thank you so much, Pat.
Hello.
And good evening once again. I am truly honored to be sharing my story among the many amazing stories we have in EduSpots. So before I dive into my story, I would like to, for just a moment, highlight on something I believe makes EduSpots unique. EduSpots is an NGO that trains, equips local volunteers, and in essence, we have a vision of ensuring that we are creating a world where the communities come together to unite to create the change we want to see. Now, what that tells me is, unlike many other NGOs that come, they give you resources, donations for some duration, and then they go. EduSpots is focusing on how do we beginning ensure that able to get all the necessary things. Really, I'm grateful for this because I feel that in as much as there are immediate needs and these immediate needs are sorted after a short while, oftentimes a bigger one is more sustainability and impact, and that is what EduSpots offers. And so, as an evidence of this sustainable structure, I would like to call what I term as the educational curriculum. So, the educational curriculum actually came about last year, somewhere April, May, that it was launched. And it came about by consulting peers in the local community and really allowing them to express their needs and things that they found are very key things they want to tackle on. Now, these issues were categorized to what we call strands, and we currently run 5 of those strands in the network. So the first strand, which I consider as the heart of all the strands, is sports operations. Sports operation is basically a strand that talks about the day-to-day run of the sport and maintenance of the sport, capturing of data, and how many people are using the sport and all the impact things you can think about. And we also have another need that was identified, which is more of the younger ones or the children, their literacy development. Now, as underserved communities, you often have children who might be out of the range of probably 1 year to 7 year olds, but yet they don't have the basic literacy development that they should have at that stage. So instead of categorizing it by age, our educate strand actually categorize it by class. So you have from as low as crèche to like primary 3. And we also have EduLit strand, which complements the Educate club or strand. And that one is more of the higher level or adult literacy development. Then we have the EcoSTEM Club, which I currently lead and have been leading for the past 2 years now. So one of the major things that I also face in my community, don't have enough science teachers, don't have the resources to do practical science, a whole lot. And so oftentimes students go all the way, even if you're fortunate to get to university without having any hands-on STEM. And that really makes the whole STEM concept abstract and really not interesting as much and relatable. So what the EcoSTEM strand offers is to leverage on the local resources in these communities and come up with creative ways to link whatever we are producing to the curriculum that they are currently studying in class and ensuring that they are getting the hands-on education that otherwise they couldn't get in a more modernized library, modernized technology or institution. So now we have the last strand, which is our Ignite Girls strand. This was actually came about with the idea there was a need, volunteers thought there was a need to have a club that focuses especially on girls. Now we acknowledge that yes, the gentlemen also need special treatment. But like I said, EduSpots is focusing on collaborative leadership style, and majority of the community did acknowledge we have a girls club. And this club ensures that girls are getting soft skills and all the needed skills. The women that also contribute their quota to environment beyond just the home as traditionally known. And so, how did I come into the EduSpot network? My story started in 2018 on a fateful Saturday morning where I was doing my regular washing, and at the time, I was doing my A levels, which was a 2 year crash course into 10 months at the African Science Academy, and I spotted Miss Kat during this season, Miss Kat Asilo, and she was struggling to wash my hands. So I offered to help, and some way, somehow, we ended up having conversations. And here I was, this young girl, just sharing really what I thought at the time I just fancied because I never saw them come into reality in my wildest imagination. And that actually inspired the Catalyst program. I applied for it and I won a grant, which made me one of the original receivers of the Catalyst donation. Now, my idea after receiving this grant was really tied on what I've experienced up to that point and more of my community in the sense that I come from a community where, as of 2018, 80% of the homes had no electricity whatsoever. 90% of the adults or even the grown people, even the teenagers, some have no basic education. So most people cannot even say a word in English or write a word in English. And what that meant for kids like us meant that we're struggling with homework. There were nights where I'd have to do what I'm able to do and I'll not do the rest. Not because I am not a child that wanted to do my homework, but just because there's no one around me really my house or even around to help me. Another major thing was there were nights where I won't be able to do my homework because I get back from school like 3 or 5 and I'm required to do basic choices. By the time I finish, it's dark, there's no light. So I had to book torchlight with my grandma, who was really sweet. I'll never forget that. I would torchlight with her some nights so that I could get my homework done. And there are nights I will not give in the torchlight because the torchlight is being used to prepare dinner. And so, among all these many things, I felt I'm not the only one who has gone through this. And even those coming after me. So, how many more children, how many more people are going to go through this before there's a change? And that's why I inspired my project idea. So after the actualization of this project, apart from the immediate needs that, like access to 24/7 electricity, um, getting access into the network and the strand and the consistent activities and all that, and also having volunteers who open the sport and are able to help the children with their homework. I mean, I was amazed by some impacts that I never saw. So one of them was volunteer and our community proactiveness. So at the start of the program, myself and most of my community, we felt helpless. We felt this education issue is beyond us. In our heads, like many other, we were thinking there's has to be somebody somewhere who is this PhD person who's going to come and help us. But what we did realize is that education goes beyond the fact that you can read and write, and this was evident in we leverage our skills like, okay, there are people who can do welding, so they help weld the shelves, and that save us money that can go into books. There were people who came out, they are not even painters. I remember I had to just buy paint, and we painted this beautiful library you see here. We also have students who proactively started being like, okay, if contribution doesn't mean I should just be able to read and write and read. I can also come and be cleaning the spot before I go back home to get ready for school. That has been going on. Among these really is stereotypes and leadership. It broke some very long stereotype we had. So, as a girl child in my community, there's this defined idea of how I should interact with the men or the older people. So, at the start of the project, I really had to face my fears. I had to go see the assemblymen, I had to go see the chiefs, and it was really like a breakthrough point for me because um, after I managed to overcome that fear, and this project has actually been actualized and running, it inspired a lot of the volunteer team to also step up and do what they want to do. So, for example, I recruited 19 volunteers, and at the time, one of them, for example, Mr. Mohammed, some of you know him. He's even a man, and he was quite quiet, confident, and then not very confident and timid, But through access to the EduSpot network, that's beyond the sport, he was able to attend conferences and trainings, and he grew so much that when I got my scholarship to study computer science here in Accra, he was able to step in and actually have been running the sport very well for the past 3 years. So what am I driving at? The singular fact that EduSport gave a girl like me the opportunity to actualize something that I thought was a fantasy has really inspired not just the growth of myself, but a growth that goes beyond even communities. When I went into university, I thought, oh, that was it because I'm not in the community context. I found myself like literally going into the community to find ways and means of what I can start. And I ended up starting a STEM educational project, which actually has grown into a business for the women and the children in the community. It's about water sustainability and recycle and all that. And these are just the very few things time will allow me to share. But what I'm driving at, or what really I want us to do at this point, is just take a moment to reflect on the fact that my project or this idea is one of the smallest spots in the network. And if I'm able to achieve this much impact in the last 5 years, Now, EduSpots has over 50 other sports who are doing equally amazing work. And when we say EduSpots or the EduSpots story, all these singular sports and their unique reasons of why they exist is EduSpots story.
Thank you very much, Getrude, for sharing your amazing story. Now, moving on, I would ask, what is a sport? How does a sport function? What happens in a typical sport? We have Adam over here to take us through what a sport is and how a sport functions. Adam, over to you if you're ready.
Yes. Okay. Thank you very much. Thank you very much for Getrude for sharing. Yours was full of inspiration and resilience. We hope to raise at least as many people like you who can inspire change in your various localities. Thank you very much. Pat, as mentioned earlier, I think I'm Adam Nabila Adam. I'm a volunteer from the Kalpohin community since 2019. I'm also the sport leader for the community sport. I joined EduSpots in 2022 as a regional sports coordinator for Northern region and had responsibility for Western and Central as well as Kenya. I think for sports, as we say, when we talk of sports, just like we have drinking sports and other sports that are scattered around in our communities, EduSpots has to do with education. So there are spaces that are provided that are serve as center of hope, where people come in order to access educational facilities and resources to better their lives. Now, what happened is that when applications are received for new sports from individuals or group of individuals who are passionate to effect change or who are already leading some kind of change in their communities, we conduct a consideration interview where the applicants has to demonstrate community interest and participation. Now, during this consideration stage, what EduSpots does is that we consider issues such as the availability of structure to host the new sport and then community commitment for sustainability basis. Now, when all this satisfies the condition that we meet, I think we admit the sport on probation for a period of 6 months, upon which they are fully integrated into the network. Now, sports are run in the various communities by volunteers. And these volunteers are community members who are passionate and share the dreams and aspirations of EduSpots. That is leading a change in their various communities. So what happened that these educational volunteers in the areas develop educational programs that meets the needs of the community, so that depending on your locality, you may have a peculiar educational need that you may want, an outcome that you may want to achieve. So you are free as an EduSpots branch to develop local initiatives to fill those gaps. And mostly when you are designing these gaps, when the volunteers design this gap, they carefully design it such that it fill the gaps and complement what is being taught in schools. As volunteers join and come on board as a result of the community outreach, these volunteers are placed in the strands as mentioned earlier by our first speaker. So the volunteers are given an opportunity to choose the strand they are comfortable with and they can lead in the sport. So these 5 strands, EcoSTEM, Ignite Girls, Educate, and Sport Ops are the main strands that we need. These strands were developed by EduSpots to guide the community, because for a comprehensive needs assessment across the communities, it will realize that these are the key issues affecting the communities in the where the sports operate. So as a result of this, catalysts are placed based on their strengths to lead any one of the strands. Now, EduSpot, what happens is that EduSpot, after recruiting volunteers, they train and empower them in order to lead the change that they want to do. So what happens is that, like a mother hen, EduSpot do not just leave the sports after it's being created and adopted by the organization, but it also provides some kind of support that they can use to support whatever work they are doing. So in terms of capacity building in national conferences, catalyzed programs and online courses and Ignite sessions, among other programs, are rolled out in order to build the capacity of these local volunteers. So what happened is that these volunteers, depending on what happened, depending on the nature of the sport, the volunteers are supervised by a sport management committee. And this management committee is very crucial in EduSpot due to the sense of sustainability in projects and community ownership of this project. So if we have two types of sports, we have those who are school-based and we have those who are community-based. The sport management committees are formed to have the character of the sports that is operated within a locality. For example, a school-based may have a committee comprising the head teacher and the other teachers alike who share similar ideals about the educational fortunes of the kids. And a community-based sport may have the management committee in the character of having maybe the community, that's the chief, the assemblyman, the unit committee, and other stakeholders of the community. So what do they do? This sports management committee, as I said earlier, they supervise the work of volunteers in the sport in terms of oversight, financial oversight, and accountability. And they also try to establish engagement between the community and the sport. They try to enforce safeguarding protocols that exist within the community, as well as manage conflicts that come about as a result of the sports operations, either within volunteers or between volunteers and the community. Now, these volunteers also, in their operations, they are guided by specific tools that enable them to function effectively. For example, depending on the community, the volunteers can decide on clear, opening, and closing hours of the sport, because different communities have different situations. So they decide in their community what is suitable for them and what can best be applicable. Aside the opening, they have an activity schedule, which normally they program the activities of the sport over the week, from Sunday through to Monday. What activity comes and at what particular point in time. When that happens, volunteers are guided and sport users are also guided to know which activity to attend at the sport. Volunteers, as with this schedule, are also scheduled in the form of roster or rota, where they know which day they come to attend. Sport attendance records are kept as a means of also safeguarding the users of the sport, because safeguarding and child protection is key in EduSport operations. So you need to ensure that those who come into the sport and go out of the sport are registered, so that at any point in time, anybody can cross-check to know who was at the sport at what particular point in time. And also, you need to display the safeguarding protocols on the walls, so that anybody coming in will know very well that the place is safe for kids and vulnerable adults. So depending on the availability of funds, as I mentioned earlier, and my colleagues have already mentioned, the sport are supposed to be community-led and community-sustained. So the community, with the help of the sport management committee, will have to raise funds in other resources in order to support the operations of the sport. But what happened is that depending on the availability of funds, EduSpots can also support the sport with some resources like books and books, science kits, and other educational materials in order to supplement what the community can afford and can mobilize for the community. And so from time to time, EduSport organizers embark on resource distribution to sports in the various communities. Grants sometimes, because of the nature of the communities and the kind of communities EduSport operate, sometimes they are hard to reach, or they are a kind of disadvantaged in terms of the distribution of resources. So EduSport from time to time open grant applications so that sports can apply that grant, and then they can use that to maintain their sports in terms of infrastructure, the structure of the sport. It may have defects that may need to be corrected. They may have broken furniture and tables that they will need to work on, or they may have some issues with their lighting system that they may have to fix. So EduSport, from time to time, depending on the availability of funds, make this opportunity available for sports to tap in order to support their various sports. In conclusion, what I want to say is that one of the strengths of EduSport is the belief in the capacity of the community volunteers to lead the change in their localities. This belief is reflected in the EduSport staff recruitment, where community volunteers are given the opportunity to take staff roles like myself and my colleagues who are speaking here. And I would therefore want to call on everybody, whether big or small, to contribute their widow's mite to support this community-led initiative to find solutions to the challenges in the communities that are disadvantaged as a result of their location or economic situation. Thank you very much.
All right, thank you very much, Adam, for explaining how our sport functions.
Yeah.
Now, moving on to our volunteer community. Right. Whatever we do at EduSpots hinges on volunteers, and then volunteers are at the heart of what we do. That is why we have the saying, volunteers equals EduSpots. Without volunteers, we can't operate. This is Arthur Ashe, who has made significant stride in the world of tennis. Arthur Ashe once said, start where you are, use what you have, and do what you can. This is basically what we do at EduSpots. We identify communities that are already doing things to create change, and then we leverage or support communities to further advance this change by leveraging on their strengths. Almost what we do is that we identify individuals who want to create change or are already doing activities that are geared towards developing their communities. We induct these individuals and connect them with like-minded people, right, and help them build local teams in their communities. We onboard them on our trainings and equip them with resources that they would require to advance change in their community via our programs, which I'll be talking about in a bit. As part of the program, volunteers lead educational clubs, which ripples down to learners who are mostly children, and it improves their confidence and educational outcomes. Ultimately, learners grow to become volunteers themselves, and then other community members also show interest to become volunteers. Right. One would ask, what do volunteers do? There's this popular saying that goes, you can't measure the value of volunteers, because Noah's Ark was built by volunteers and Titanic was built by professionals, right? So at EduSpots, volunteers generally ensure that the sport is always safe for learners. I remember when I won a Catalyst grant, what we did to ensure that the Sakasaka sport was always safe for learners was to draw a child protection signage on the wall, which communicates to everybody that enters the space that this space, we don't joke with child protection. And then it reassures children that they are always safe when they are in this sport or space. Volunteers also lead club activities at the sport and update staff with the outcome. On a monthly basis, we have challenges that we roll out. And then it is the responsibility of volunteers to lead these challenges, administer these challenges to students, and feedback submissions to strand coordinators for judging. Volunteers equally lead educational resource collection, and thanks to everybody that supported our Big Book Drive recently, the one we recently held. So this was spearheaded by volunteers in sport communities. As when Adam was presenting, at EduSpots, we don't spoon feed volunteers, we don't spoon feed communities. What we do is that we capacitate them to, lead their own change. In so doing, volunteers organize fundraising activities to sustain ongoing costs. And then we understand that we operate in myriad communities with different culture or with different cultures and traditions. So it is the responsibility of volunteers also brainstorm ideas with their team members and ensure that the sport yields the impact it's meant to, create. Core volunteer programs. At EduSpots, we don't remunerate volunteers. And then since we understand the value of volunteers, we make conscious efforts to, develop their leadership capacities and help them improve more professionally and personally. In so doing, we have these 3 core volunteer programs. So we have the Ignite program, we have Catalyze program, and we have peer mentoring programs. Now, under Ignite program, it seeks to nurture the leadership abilities of our volunteers and empower them as change agents. Under Ignite program, we instill in our volunteers our core ways of working and a strong commitment to child protection. The Ignite program comprises of four regional conferences or academies where we connect volunteers. We give them training on our 5 strands, as my colleagues earlier mentioned. There's also a monthly coaching session led by strand leaders or strand coordinators. And at the end of the program, volunteers reflect on their learning so far to be certified or get a certificate. The Catalyze program is a step-up program to the Ignite program. And under the Catalyze program, volunteers undergo comprehensive training on our Dream Sports model, which is primarily focused on ensuring that our sports are more sustainable. And the Catalyze program, there's a 5-day in-person regional academy where catalysts or volunteers are trained on how to make the sport more sustainable. They draft community action plans, and then at the end of the program, they reflect on their learnings so far. The peer mentoring program is sort of like a semi-staff role, which is partially compensated. And under the peer mentoring program, volunteers who have already undergone training, both Ignite and then Catalyze program, we train them to get employability skills. In the sense that they help staff in their delivery, and then they also serve as mentors to other volunteers who are undergoing training. Under the peer mentoring program, there's also reflection at the end of the program to get to allow volunteers to get a certificate and also reflect on their learning so far. I'll pause here and welcome a few questions. And as you are thinking of the questions to ask, I would want to call on a few staff to give us their hopes for EduSpots' future. So maybe Anna, Jocelyn, sorry to put you on the spot, and then Cynthia. So as people are thinking of the questions to ask, if you can come off mute and share with us your hopes for EduSpots' future. I'm taking Anna first. Is Anna with us? Yeah, fantastic.
Yes.
Anna, the floor is yours.
Okay. All right. So we all know that education is the foundation of a prosperous and progressive society. So it is really inspiring to see the work that EduSpot does, and providing education and to disadvantaged communities is truly remarkable. So I strongly believe that our work does not only benefit the children in the community, but everyone in the community as well. So my hope and wish is that EduSpot keeps going steadily in championing sustainable education and community-led change in rural areas in Ghana and even worldwide, if that's possible. I see that coming. And I really hope that we continue to make the huge difference you're making in our rural communities. Thank you.
Great, great. Thank you very much for sharing. Cynthia.
Okay, good evening, everyone. I side with what Anna is saying. Currently, we are 250 volunteers catering to 15,000 children. There's a large population that is growing, so it is the hope that in the next few years we would have an increased volunteer base reaching out to more children. But most importantly, we'll be catering to children who will become change makers themselves. They will become active citizens and be able to continue the trend of being change makers in their community. I also believe that EduSpots community-led model is one unique one we need to look out for. And in the coming years, we can have a lot of organizations taking a leaf out of our book.
Great. Thank you very much for sharing, Cynthia. Jocelyn.
Hi, everybody. Good evening. So for me, I'm looking forward to having communities taking full ownership of EduSpots, because I believe that EduSpots is community-based and is looking to have communities lead projects. So I'm looking forward to more ownership of the volunteers, more ownership of the communities. So it's not just us providing a network for them or resources for them to tap from, but we would close the circle of network where, we can also go to the communities and say, we are looking for somebody to lead this training, or we are looking for somebody to do this, and we'll be able to take it from the communities that we are working with. So for me, I'm looking forward to a more closed relationship between EduSpots and the communities that we are working with, and for these communities to take full ownership of the project that we are doing, to be innovative, for them to come to us and say, we are doing this is the plan that we have, and this is what we need, instead of more prescribing what we think that these communities need. We want them to be more proactive. We want them to take more responsibility, because eventually what we're looking forward to is for them to create the vision or the change that they want to see in their community. Thank you.
Great. Thank you very much for sharing, Jocelyn. I'll now welcome questions. Please feel free to put it in the chat section if it makes you comfortable, or you can come off mute and ask any question you have in your mind. Maybe allowing giving
A question on
Sure. So Adam, I'm
chat.
on the chat section. So please, if you can read it out, I would really appreciate.
Okay. I think my question is from Kat. The question is, I would love Adam to hear from Adam about the impact he thinks Kalpohin has had and his dreams for his future. Thank you very much, Pat, for your question. Thankfully, some of my volunteers are with me, and they will attest to what I'm about saying. I think Kalpohin Community Library Kalpohin sport has had a lot of impact in our community. First, I would say that it is a place that has come to ensure that students have an organized aim of learning. It provides a space for students to come together and sit and learn and share ideas. Formerly, we used not to have such space within Kalpohin. So whether during the day or in the night, the place is always there. Students know very well that when we get to this place, we're going to get a safe environment in order to study. That's one impact on it. And the second, I think Kalpohin has made on a larger community is that the sport is able to coordinate discussion among schools within the locality, so that to the extent that the schools acknowledges Kalpohin Community Library as a partner organization. In any time they are naming their partner organizations within the community in the schools, they name Kalpohin EduSpots as part of the partner organization. This has come to stay because the presence of the sport has enabled volunteers or catalysts within the sport to reach out to many schools in terms of organizing competitions, quiz competitions among the schools, in terms of what? Mobilizing the various schools students and helping them to undertake certain activities, whether within or outside the community. But the calling, what brings this is always the sport. So there are many other impacts in our volunteers. We have learned a lot from EduSpots, and our leadership skills has been sharpened by EduSpots. And the way we collaborate and we interact ourselves, we believe that EduSpots has helped us to have a common goal, and that is defeating the challenges that bedevils the community. In the future, we are rebranding Kalpohin to take a space where our educational programs is going to be touching to all aspects of the schools in Kalpohin community. As one of the EduSpots aims is that the schools within which the network operates to be able to adopt aspects of EduSpots model. And that is what we are working towards. We are working to ensure that the early year literacy is enhanced in the schools. We're also working to ensure that students at the junior high school level are able to read and comprehend what they read. So in the future, these are some of the programs that Kalpohin Sport will be rolling out, and it's going to affect the entire community. Thank you very much.
I can't have this proverb that translates: one head doesn't go into council, and then it takes more than one hand to lift a heavy load. What we do at EduSpots is actually heavy. That's why we are introducing EduChamps, which is a new monthly giving club that provides our supporters the chance to sustainably invest in the future of learners, our volunteers, and wider sport communities. So as a member of EduChamp, you would get a free EduSpots branded cotton tote bag or a t-shirt. You also get regular doses of inspiration from sport communities, right? Recommendations, reading recommendations to also expand your knowledge on community-led education. You also get exclusive invitations to events and opportunity to feed into our future plans. Farida hopefully is going to drop a link in the chat section. If you want to read more about EduChamps and how to join, you can kindly click on the link to do so. Right. On the big give, thankfully, we've been able to secure a 10,000 match funding by the big give, which runs the biggest Christmas challenge, and it offers supporters of participating charities such as EduSpots the opportunity to have their donations doubled. So all donations made from 28th November to the 5th of December would be doubled. And as I stated, our shoulders are delicate and then would require a collective effort to ensure that we hit this 10,000 pound target. Right. We know, as they say, time is like a bird, right? When you allow it to fly, you can't catch it, and then we are very aware of time. I would say a very big thank you for granting us your attention and making it to this session. If you'd want to learn more about EduSpots, please feel free to follow us on social media at EduSpots. You can also read more about EduSpots at www.eduspots.org, and feel free to also drop us an email at info@eduspots.org. Asante sana, which means a very big thank you to you in Swahili, and have a lovely evening. Thank you all.